Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Emma LaFave, and today I'm going to be reviewing these brand new Paul Rubens Artist Watercolor tubes. So let's jump right in and get started. Okay guys, so today I am testing out Paul Rubens Artist Watercolor tubes. I have never tried their tubes before. I believe this is the 4th generation. It comes with 36 colors and I'm excited to try it out. They also sent me this brush, which is, I believe, is a soft squirrel hair brush, and I've never tried one of these brushes out before. I tend to go for a more snappier brush, but they sent me one of these, so I'm definitely going to try this out as well. But I wanted to test out the watercolors because if you've seen my review before of the watercolor pan of theirs, I really enjoy that. So now I'm going to try out their tubes. And to do so, I wanted to put them in a palette, but the only palette that I could get was one that's similar to the one that I have all my Winsor Newton paints in. So I bought an extra one of those to put these paints in, but there's only 28 wells in this palette and there are 36 colors. So my thinking is that I'm going to create kind of like a dot card chart to test out all the colors and then pick 28 of them to put in that palette and then see how that goes. So let's open this up, see what they look like. First of all, I have to say the box is very beautiful. It's very sturdy and just very clean looking. It has, I guess, the information here. It has all the pigments, the transparency, the light fastness rating. So you can definitely check out that information if that means something to you. And let's take a look at these watercolors. Okay, so here they are. They have tons of colors, 36, and I'm just going to start opening them and creating this dot chart. Okay, so I have created my dot card, which I figured was the best way to do this. I just put little dots onto my watercolor paper, and then I'm just using a wet flat brush to activate the paints. And at first glance, I'm really impressed. They just seem to activate really nicely. They're very pigmented, very beautiful. And I don't know, so I am not the biggest pigment nerd. I know some people know a lot about watercolors and pigment numbers, and it makes a big difference for them and they need to know all these things. I don't necessarily look at all those things. If you are more interested in that technical side, Lindsay from the Frugal Crafter, she, I believe, has done a review on these paints, and she is kind of, to me, the pigment queen. She knows a lot about that stuff. So if you're looking for more technical reviews, I would definitely suggest going to her. But for me, I kind of just get a feel, and things that I look for in my paints. A big telltale sign for me is if a paint feels chalky. Like if you were to let it dry and then rub your finger over it, would it leave a residue on your finger? That to me feels like, are these good quality paints or not? And to me, these are not that at all. They are pretty comparable to what I use now, which is my Winsor Newton Professionals. They're very pigmented. They activate super quickly and well. They just have this beautiful wash. I don't know, I get this artist quality feel from them, which they claim to be, and I have used the Paul Rubens pan sets before, and I've really enjoyed those, and these seem very similar, but in a tube version. So I have tried other tubes that are not great quality, and you will notice it right when you lay them down on paper. You get kind of this chalky, cracky feeling. Maybe they don't spread as well, but these are just super beautiful and buttery, and I really enjoyed it. And I also enjoyed the range of colors. There were so many beautiful colors. I don't know how I'm going to decide which ones go in my palette, but they were just really beautiful. And they're not exactly the same as colors I already have. Some are very similar, obviously, but there's some that I don't have. So I thought that was really exciting. And yeah, so at first glance, I think they perform beautifully, but we'll have to keep playing around and see. Okay, so now it's time to put them in my palette. I have narrowed down my 28 colors, which I'm going to go through the names of which ones I chose, but I'm just quickly showing you. Some people have complained, and I have had this problem too, that their paints crack or fall out of their palettes. So this time I tried a glue stick trick, which I use on the big wells to prevent beading. So what I did this time, and I've never done this before, is I just put a little bit of a glue stick in each of the little wells where I'm going to put the paint, and then I wiped it up with my paper towel. Hopefully this will just help keep them in there. I don't actually know if this will work. Some people have said maybe sand it down. I don't know. And for me, with my Winsor & Newton paints in my palette, just like this, the only ones that have ever fallen out have been the like burnt umber and maybe a couple others, but not all of them. So it really depends. So that's what I did for that. And now I'm just arranging them. And the way I arranged this palette is slightly different than the way I usually do it. So you're going to see when I go through all the names, but I have all my yellows. I start from my yellows, moving into my orange, red, pink, then purple, then blue along that one side where they're all going one way, and then greens. Usually I have those swapped, my greens first and then blues, but this time I decided to do it. And people ask all the time, what specific way do you need to put your paints in your palette? And I'm going to tell you, it's whatever way you want to paint them in. Obviously, I go the way of the rainbow, just make it easier, but it's your own preference. So it's up to you how you want to arrange them. This is just the way I do it. Okay, so I finally finished filling out my palette. I'm just going to go through what I ended up putting in here. It was a tough decision because there are so many beautiful colors, but I guess I narrowed it down to 28 instead of 36. So here I have Naples yellow. Then I put in a lemon yellow, then a cadmium yellow, and then earth yellow, which is kind of like a yellow ochre. Then I decided to put in transparent yellow. I've never had a color like this, and I really kind of like the brightness of it, so I decided to put that one in. Then I put in transparent orange because I just like the rustiness of it. I thought it was really beautiful. Then here I have Pyrrole Ruby Red, which is a nice bright red. Then quinacridone rose, which is more on the pinky side. And then this Perline Maroon is stunning. I love this color. Like the deepness of that red is so beautiful. Then I have quinacridone Maroon, which is like a pink, a beautiful kind of magenta color. Then quinacridone Violet. And then here I had a hard time because these two, Dioxazine Violet and Brilliant Blue Violet, they're very similar, but the Brilliant Blue Violet has this slight tint of blue to it, and I just couldn't decide because I felt like I really needed a Dioxazine Violet in there, but I really like this color, so I put in both. So up here I have Dioxazine Violet. Then I put in the Brilliant Blue Violet right here because it's just really pretty. Then I believe I have French Blue here, or maybe, I don't know how to say this, Indanthrone Blue. And then this one is French Blue. I'm going to have to get to know my palette again. This is the only thing about making a new palette of colors. I have to be familiar with all of these colors again, which my other one I'm just so familiar with. Then I have Berlin Blue here. Azure Hue, which is a nice bright blue. And then I left out Cobalt Blue Light just because, I don't know, I felt it was very similar to the French Blue. It was just lighter and I didn't feel like I needed it in there. But I did put the Translucent Turquoise, and then I decided to put the Cobalt Turquoise just because it was a fun color that none of the other colors would necessarily make. Then we're skipping to the greens here. I have May Green, Sap Green, Olive Green, which is hands down my favorite. Olive Green Dark, which is a really nice, just darker version. Not as olivey, but it's a nice dark green. And then this Cobalt Turquoise Light is just really cool. I haven't had a color like that in my palette, so I thought that would be fun to add in there. And then here, I'm going to skip back over here. I decided to put my Burnt Sienna over here. I just like to have my browns and blacks and stuff together. So Burnt Sienna is here. Then I put Brown Umber here. Then I put Indigo. Even though Indigo is more of a blue, I just kind of use it more for shadows and stuff rather than necessarily just a blue. So I put Indigo here and then the Ivory Black here. So that's my new palette. I don't know if I'm going to be using this instead of my Winsor & Newton one. I think I might. The only reason or hesitation I would have about using this palette over my Winsor & Newton one is that I just don't know it as well yet. And I am so familiar with my colors in my Winsor & Newton palette. This is going to take some time, but I have to say the way they've dried, they're not completely dry yet. I did leave it overnight. They still have some bounce to them, like they're a little bit wet underneath. But so far, there's no cracking. It doesn't look like they're going to fall out. What I did do was take a glue stick and I just put a glue stick on the bottom of each well, and then I wiped it up with some paper towel, which is actually something I do on the wells to keep your paint from beading. So I'm just going to show you quickly. I do have a video on this that I've done before, but I thought I would just show you again here. So I'm just going to take my brush. I'm going to take a color. Really enjoying this French blue, and see how you get that beading, right? Super obnoxious. Well, a little trick, there's a couple tricks, but I found one that works decently well. Hopefully it works now, because if it doesn't work on camera, then I'm lying, but it's worked in the past. Take a glue stick, any kind of glue stick, and you just place the glue all over like that. Then you're going to take a tissue or paper towel, and you're just going to kind of wipe it around. You're kind of wiping it up, but it just leaves this kind of, it's not like super gluey, but you're just kind of wiping the majority of it up. Then you can go back in with your paints, and it doesn't bead anymore. And there's no like sticky residue on your paintbrush or anything. It doesn't, I haven't found that it has affected the paint. It still beads up a little bit, but the thing is, before I even figured out this trick, this was something that I would just kind of deal with for the majority of my painting career in the beginning. Was, I guess it still does bead a bit, but I would just use my palette over and over and over and over again, and eventually it would stop. Like, it will stop at some point. It's not going to be like this forever. So if you are having trouble with it, the more you use it, the less it will bead. I know it can be quite frustrating, but the glue stick thing has worked for me in the past, and other people swear by using those Mr. Clean magic erasers. I don't have any, so I'm probably just going to do the glue thing right now, and hopefully that works, but that's another option, I believe. So yeah, that is that. And now we're going to get into just painting, so I can just chat a little bit more about how these paints perform. Oh, and while we're getting into the painting, I am going to try out this Paul Rubens brush. I did open it already and I rinsed it out. I haven't really used one of these brushes before, so we're also going to try this out. Like I've said, I do tend to like a snappier brush that bounces right back. This is a lot softer and kind of a bit more moldable when you're painting. So we're going to see how I like this. I think it's going to be nice for like a sky or a backwash, but we will have to see. So let's begin. Okay, so for my painting, I figured I would just do a landscape because this brush it holds a lot of water, and it's really nice for background washes. So I decided to do a sunset. I was just kind of winging it. Wanted to try and use a lot of the colors, not too many of the colors, but just try one of my simple go-to sunset paintings. And with the brush, it is very soft, but like I said, it holds a lot of water, so it's actually quite perfect for these landscape paintings with lots of washes, and it blends so nicely. And also these colors, they weren't completely dry in my palette. I left them overnight. The tops were kind of dry, but they weren't hard to the touch. They still felt like a little squishy, like it didn't come up on my finger, but you could tell it still needed to dry underneath. So I couldn't swish my brush in there too much because I didn't want to get all that wet paint that was underneath. But I will say that these paints activated super well. Like, you didn't need to run your brush over it a million times to get pigment. They lifted so nicely. They were so smooth. The pigment is just so vibrant and beautiful. If you told me that these were my Winsor & Newton paints, I would probably believe you. They're very comparable. They do not feel chalky. They do not feel cheap. They feel like beautiful artist quality paints, and I really love the way they work. I might actually switch using this palette and my Winsor & Newton. So I would highly check them out because they are really nice paints to work with. As for the brush, I do really enjoy using the brush for background washes. It holds so much water, like I was saying. The only thing is that it is squirrel hair, so it's not a vegan brush. It's not a synthetic kind of squirrel hair brush. So if that is a deal breaker for you, you might want to rethink about that and get a synthetic one, but it is really nice for background washes. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it, and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.